And it looks like we're live. And hopefully that's not too dark. It's kind of dark. And I forgot to turn my extra light on before I went live. So I guess you'll have to live with it. Good win for the Jazz. Obviously, it was a win that we expected to get. The interesting thing with this, though, is the Bulls really fought. And I don't follow the Bulls closely, so I apologize for any Bulls fans watching this. But I believe the Bulls were on a losing streak coming into this game. Obviously, they just acquired some new pieces at the trade deadline. They got Daniel Theis from the Celtics. They got Vucevic from the Magic, which is better than what they had. So they actually have a team that, like, honestly, I'm curious to hear what you guys think. So maybe I'll bring it up later, but I'm curious, like, do you guys think the Bulls are going to make the playoffs this year? Obviously, a little easier to get a chance at the playoffs because we have the planned games this year. So I think they have a better chance than they would normally. So I think that's why the Bulls made those moves. They're really hoping to make it into the playoffs. It's been a while. They have talent there. So frustrating for the Bulls to be losing games right now. Obviously, the Jazz are not an easy win for any team, but I'm just going to give a shout out to the Bulls saying they played great. They really fought hard, and not necessarily that they played amazing the whole game, because there were times that they were down by a lot, but they were down almost the whole first half. Come back in the third quarter when a lot of people, if they're watching the score, probably think it's over, because if the Jazz have a double-digit lead against any team, it's pretty safe to say that the Jazz are going to win that game. But then they come back, tie it up in the third quarter, let the Jazz come back again and build a pretty good lead, and then they come back right at the end of the fourth, within 3 with less than a minute left. But with the free throws and the Bulls not being able to convert on some end of the game buckets, the Jazz ended up winning 113-106. But awesome, great from the Bulls. Great effort. Zach LaVine led their effort, or actually not even Zach LaVine. Thaddeus Young led them in scoring tonight with 25. Zach LaVine, I believe, was 23, so pretty close. I'll fact check myself a little bit later when I get to the box score. So Tyler Grapp says in response to if he thinks the Bulls are going to make it to the playoffs, he says if they had a full season together, I think they would, but not this year. I think that's probably where I am. I don't have any like strong opinions on Eastern Conference basketball, so I think it'd be fun to see them make it just because it's been so long. But I agree, the trades were probably a little bit like too little, too late. They're having to adjust to new players, and I haven't checked the standings, but at least recently in the East. But last I checked, they were they were fighting for a play-in spot, not necessarily fighting for the 8th spot. But I guess they could turn things around and if it clicks. But I agree with you, Tyler, that that's probably going to be a little bit of a long shot for them. Good job for the Jazz holding on. I am a little bit concerned, though, because this is their second game in not too long where they felt like they had the game, and then right at the end, it comes down to the wire. The other one that I'm thinking of is the first game against the Grizzlies, where it came down to that jump ball versus Mike Conley and John Morant. So I'm not too worried about it personally yet, but that could be a concerning thing if the Jazz fight hard, get a lead, but if they have the tendency of losing it, they have to put an extra effort to build that lead back or to fight for that game. And if you're playing a better team that isn't the Grizzlies or the Bulls who are fighting for a playoff spot, or if you're playing a team who solidly has a playoff spot, it's going to be tougher to get those wins. So that's a concern to kind of be aware of. I don't think it's a huge concern yet. Something to watch for the future. With that in mind, I don't want to spend too much time on the stats because I didn't say anything like crazy exciting. One thing is, this is another trend that I'm starting to see. I'm not sure if it's a bad thing. I'm not sure if it's the Jazz not shooting well or if it's the Jazz are just maybe teams are opting to foul the Jazz more. Or I don't know what's happening, but I'm starting to see more and more that the Jazz are making less shots as far as total shots made than their opponents, but they're still winning games, and that's because some games is because of 3-pointers and the extra threes that they make definitely help. But in this specific game, and I think in most cases when this happens, it ends up being free throws. Jazz were really good from the free throw line. They were 26 for 27 from the line tonight. So that's what won them the game because they made 6 less shots than the Bulls, and they only made 6 more threes. So 6 less shots, you're down 12. 6 more threes, an extra 6. If they tied on the free throws, then the Bulls would have won 6. But luckily, the Jazz made 13 more free throws than the Bulls did, and they only missed 1 free throw. So great shooting night there. To go over to the box score, I mentioned that Thaddeus Young led the Bulls in scoring at 25. Just real quick for the Bulls, nothing too exciting. I just wanted, so Zach LaVine did have 23 points, and the Bulls had, I don't know, just nothing too exciting. A couple players showed up and did okay. The Bulls are an interesting team because I feel like they have a lot of good talent. I just don't know if that, like, how far that talent will take it, like how far they'll develop, what they'll turn into. Because I know Markkanen, he was supposed to be a big deal at one point. It looks like he's kind of falling off and not turning into that, or maybe he's kind of streaky. Like I said, I don't follow the Bulls as closely, so if I'm wrong about that, feel free to correct me. They also have Kobe White. Denzel, is that his first name? Valentine. I'm I always have the tough time with the first names because they only give me the first initial. But like those are players that had a lot of hype coming into the league or early on in their careers, and they're still pretty early on, so they might switch it. But I don't know if it's maybe they're just not what they were hyped up to be, or maybe they're just not getting the situations they need to on the Bulls, or what's going on there. But if like the Bulls could fulfill on all that talent that they had with the hype coming in, then in a few years that could be a really fun team to watch. And then the Jazz, again, kind of what you expect. Bojan is shooting better. He was only 1 for 4 from 3, but 8 for 15 from the field. So I think he's starting to get out of that shooting slump. I'm seeing more points from him, even though he's not as efficient as I would like. He's at least getting the ball in the basket enough to score points, which is a good first step. And Donovan Mitchell, I talked about with the whole plane situation. I was worried maybe his confidence was a little bit down, that he might, I don't know, maybe not be as aggressive. If you look at the stats, he was fine. It wasn't as like great as he was doing before, but 26 points is fine. 3 rebounds, 5 assists. That's a pretty mediocre game from him. I'm not worried when I see that. And then watching him play, obviously it was at home, so he didn't have to fly anywhere, but watching him play, he looked aggressive. He came out and fought. He attacked. So I'm not worried about that. I like my worries may be like tiny, like it might happen now that like once they go on the road, but I don't anticipate that to actually impact the play in any meaningful way. And then other than that, kind of what you expect from the Jazz. So good win for the Jazz, good pickup. Bulls fought hard. Good for them. It's fun to root for the underdogs. Obviously, it would have been really frustrating if the Jazz lost this one. So I'm hoping the Bulls can go out and win some games, put some wins together, get that, because I could tell a lot of the players in the Bulls wanted that win, and they were playing good for stretches, but the Jazz are just a better team, and when the Bulls slipped up just a little bit, the Jazz were able to take that and go on a run. So that's how it works in the NBA, though, when a team like the Bulls plays a team like the Jazz. With that being, leave any comments you have in the live chat. That's what makes these fun. Um, I just kind of go with my thoughts for the game for a little bit, but then if you have any thoughts, comments, put it in the live chat, and I go until the comments are pretty much done. If it dries up, then you get to hear me ramble a little longer, and then I'll cut it off if there's not much. So, um, and if you don't have anything specific, what you can do is you can like the video. That helps bring more people on, and they have stuff to add on to the live chat. But so I talked about what you guys thought about the Bulls making the playoffs. I took a minute to talk about that. Tyler and I seem to be in agreement that if they had more time together as a team, they could probably do it. Because there's enough talent there, and they could probably sneak in at that 8th seed, or maybe they could prove us wrong and do it better than that. But it just feels like not enough time left, and maybe if they really get hot at the end of the season, they can get into that play-in game and sneak their way in. But I think it's going to be tough for them to get in the playoffs. The other question I had coming into this video is I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about this. And I talked about it a little bit earlier, where I said that I've been noticing the Jazz sometimes when they build a lead, and I can't pinpoint what causes it, but when they build a lead, a lot of times towards the end, especially like the last 4-5 minutes of a game, they're a little bit cold. I haven't noticed that they've been putting in like bench warmers or anything, but they're just not scoring, and the other team starts scoring, and that leads to a comeback and a tight game from a game that the Jazz were leading by 15 points almost the entire game. So, from what you guys have seen from the Jazz, are you concerned that that might be an issue for them going forward? Will they, especially when they start playing better teams like the Lakers? They have 2 games against the Lakers here coming up in a week or so. I don't remember exactly when that is, but do you think that this is just the Jazz getting lazy and not really focusing for the last couple of minutes because they think they have it against a team that they're up by 15 and they don't respect that team as much? Or do you think this other team just really turns it on and the Jazz don't expect that? Or is this an issue that we should be worried about? I kind of gave my thoughts about it earlier. If you weren't there, I like to sum that up. I pretty much said, I didn't give an answer as to why it happened, but I said I'm not too worried about it yet because I've seen it happen a couple times and it hasn't been like several games in a row, but it's something to keep your eye on. And Tyler added that it's probably them getting too comfortable, which from the times that I'm like, when it's a big time game, the Jazz, they show up to play, and if they have a lead, they keep attacking. So and like I said, it's only been a few games that I've really been noticing this recently. So I think that's probably a fair assessment of it, is that they get the lead, they're too comfortable, they're playing a team like the Bulls, they know they're better, they know where the Bulls sit in the league right now. So then, even though they have the starters out, the starters probably aren't giving it their all, or they just feel like they can go through the motions and still win the game, which is both like awesome because that shows the Jazz really are that good of a team that even when they are going through the motions, they can win games against most teams in the NBA. But at the same time, that's concerning because regular season basketball and playoff basketball is different. So something interesting to watch. Like I said, it's not a major concern of mine yet, but something we'll have to keep an eye on, especially as in the second half of the season, the Jazz, they have plenty of like what I would say like easier games. I kind of went through their schedule last live stream, and I kind of named the teams that I was actually like worried that the Jazz might lose a 7-game series to. And obviously, like there's other games that the Jazz might drop one to. They almost dropped one here to the Bulls. And so like on any given night, the Jazz could lose in a game, but that's kind of what I'm concerned about, is maybe they drop some to easy teams because they get too comfortable and if that happens, I hope that lights a fire underneath them because they need to keep that energy up. They need to keep that passion going, especially as it comes into playoffs. And they really have a target on their back now. Everyone knows that it's not that they just went on a good winning streak kind of early in the season. It's that they've kept that up. So they do have that target on their back. Yeah, real quick, a little bit off topic from the Jazz, but for those who are subscribed and like kind of know the patterns with this channel, or those who aren't and like the Jazz, if you aren't subscribed and you like the Jazz, here's a great place to subscribe. We focus on the Jazz, but tomorrow, so Saturdays is normally when we put out a weekly video. We're going to skip like the main weekly video this week. Just because of scheduling and stuff. But if you have any questions or anything, any thoughts going on, first off, like you can throw them in the live chat right now. But the Jazz have a game tomorrow night. Nate will be on for the live stream, and you can take care of that then. And then just next Saturday, we'll continue those videos going on. And that's just a mix of a lot of things, like it being Easter weekend, and then school's starting to like get even harder now that like the teachers know like finals are coming up, so all the projects are coming due and everything. So we decided to take a couple hours off this weekend and not do that episode, but we'll be back at it the next Saturday. That being said, though, good win for the Jazz. Looks like the chat's a little bit dry, so I'll wrap up here. Thank you for tuning in. Good one for the Jazz. This is a pretty short one, but I'm excited. Like the Jazz look like they're really going to hold on to that first seed, and barring any injuries or any just total collapses. But they do have some tougher games coming up in the nearish future, so I'm excited to see how they perform. I'm really looking forward to those Suns games. That's a good. I feel like there's a good measure to. It's not necessarily a measure for the Jazz at this point, but the Suns have been playing really good, and I'm really curious on like if the Suns are in like the same tier as like an elite team in the NBA, which I think they have the talent to, but I'm excited to watch them play the Jazz. I haven't been following injuries, so I don't think with how good they've been playing, I don't think there's any major injuries. Hopefully everyone stays healthy for those games. And of course there's the back 2 games in a row. I don't know if it's back to back against the Lakers that I'm excited for. So I'm glad the Jazz are taking the wins against the not as good teams. I don't want to say lesser teams because there's lots of talent on teams like the Bulls, but I'm glad they're taking the wins when they're available, because against some teams coming up, it won't be as easy as the most recent stretch. But everyone, thanks for tuning in. Have a good Friday night, and make sure to tune in for the post-game live stream when Nate is there tomorrow night. I'm fully anticipating a win. The Jazz are playing a Magic team who just sold a lot of their best players and on the trade deadline. So I'm really hoping for a blowout. I like to balance in those blowouts with the close games at the end. But thanks again for joining me, and have a good night.